American Magic have just launched their race AC75, and it's clear they have pushed hard into a new area of the rule. However, at what compromise? So from the Recon images, it's clear to see that American Magic have gone with a very minimalistic approach, and this was confirmed by their head of design and build, Scott Ferguson, where they've aimed to minimise volume wherever possible. Now, this is a concept that myself and Rob spoke about in our preview video as well, so really interested to see it come to fruition with one of these teams. The big gains in the last cup that Emirates Team New Zealand made was that they lowered their deck. So the foil arms are in a fixed place and the mast ball at the foot of the mast is in a fixed place. But what Team New Zealand did was drop the deck around the mast ball and put a mast foot extension on, allowing them to have more sail area down low, reducing the centre of effort and getting more drive force for the same righting moment. But they also had quite large pods either side to house the crew. The next step in this is, can we get the crew lower and reduce the side pods altogether, reducing frontal area and improving flow over the decks? This looks to be exactly what American Magic have done. So we can see that clearly they have a mast ball on a pedestal, telling us that the deck around that has been dropped because that mast ball location is fixed in the rule. But we can also see that at the gunnels are low, giving us a low freeboard. We know this because the rigging is supplied, so where we see the shrouds terminate on the gunnel, whereas other boats the shrouds go down into the hull. So we know that American Magic's gunnel, their freeboard, is a lot lower than the other teams. And when we look at the side-by-side images, we can see how this propagates into the bow and gives them a really low, slender bow. The whole thing is based around minimum volumes, and they must be right on the cusp of the rule. Now, before we go into some of the compromises they've made to get here, first of all, I'd just like to say how exciting this is. So the big fear with a second generation of boats is we all end up in the same corner of the rule. And whilst I accept that hulls may not be the biggest contributor to performance, they are certainly identifiable. And to have such unique boats at this stage is really encouraging for the competition. It's also, honestly, a bit of a nightmare for Team New Zealand in the kind of challenger and defender scenario. As a defender, you really would prefer all your challengers to be in one corner of the rule and hope that you can match that, plus find a little bit of something extra to beat whatever the best solution is from that area of the rule. But what looks like has actually happened is all the challengers have really picked different areas of the rule, for the hull at least, and covered it in different directions. That gives the challengers as a group a much better chance of finding a solution which is competitive or more competitive than Team New Zealand's. I mean, if we had to categorise the boats, you say a Lingy is an extreme Teruhutai, pods, trench deck. Then you have Luna Rossa, challenger in the cup match itself last time. Now, they were always going to be a solid performer, and their platform looks the closest to Taihoro. Ineos, who have gone for the thickest platform, so there's no lowering of the deck at all, plenty of slab sides, and they really look like they're working from an extreme in the pitch the boat sails at, from being in the water with a larger angle of attack to then flying, and maybe even using that platform for some of the lift or even downforce to increase righting moment. And then you have the American Magic take. You've gone for minimum volume, a really minimalistic hull to reduce a lot of the drag in the simplest way possible, and that's just by reducing frontal area and going with a sleek design. Now, this is really good news for the challengers because not all the challenging eggs are in the same basket. They've really spread out across the rule in the hope that one of them comes up with a concept which can justifiably challenge the defenders who have been for a few cycles now ahead of the rest. So, jumping back to American Magic, let's talk about some of the more specifics of what they've done. Well, there's a minimum volume they have to have in the front of the boat, and looking at some of these comparison shots, they really look like they've minimised the volume there. The overall hull, obviously you have to have enough volume to give the buoyancy to float the 6.5 ton platform, but above that waterline you really don't need any extra volume, so it's just about housing the systems and the structure, and American Magic are really minimalist here. Now, to achieve this globally low deck, they've had to go for recumbent cyclists. Now, all the literature I've read seems to suggest this comes with about a 10% power loss. So that's a compromise that American Magic have had to make to get this lower frontal area, lower freeboard yacht. Is it worth it? I don't know. Certainly, if you watched our preview videos, this was a concept that myself and Rob were talking about and most interested to see, so I'm really delighted it's come to fruition. But looking at it, there are clearly some compromises, not only the power, but also they need larger openings to these crew zones to cover the full layout of the recumbent cyclists. Also, the position of them is quite close in to the foot of the sail, and you've got quite a rough area of open cockpit there alongside the side of the sail, where you'd really want quite smooth and undisturbed flow. There is one additional upside, which again we spoke about in our preview videos, and that's pushing the crew as forward as possible if you allow the crew to sit side by side. Again, this is a simple concept of moving the weight as far forward as possible, getting it over the main lifting foil, and reducing the work that the rudder has to do and therefore drag, and also reducing potentially the lift from the rudder, which helps with your righting moment. All that said, having crew members sat side by side, meaning their helmets aren't any longer in line in draft with one another, you've got two heads sticking up rather than one. So again, a compromise made there. I think the other thing that's clear to see from the footage is, well, first of all, the corrosion. This foot had been in the water for moments before it started leaking the orange stuff, and after a day on the water it looked absolutely terrible. So yeah, there's been a ball drop there, but the close attention really for this area has to be on the fairings around the foil arms and the top of the foil box area and what they're doing there. We've already seen a few different iterations in terms of what Alinghi have got, what Luna Rossa have got there, and American Magic, with different options on either side of the boat, really seem to still be playing with this part of the rule. I think overall, I'm just hugely satisfied that we've got different boats. I think we're going to have a really competitive cup in that the challenges have all coming at this a slightly different angle. But there's plenty more to talk about. Over the coming weeks, I'll be going through some of the details of the systems on board, the detail of the foils once we see more of them launched and sailed, and give you a little bit more of Rob and Tom's view on which of the features they think are particularly interesting. I have certainly got the 22nd of August heavily circled in my calendar for the first day of the preliminary regattas, when these yachts are going to line up against one another for the first time. So stay tuned, and I'll be back with Rob and Tom in the coming weeks for a bit more of the detail. Take care. See you around.